When you start the WhatsApp group, can you tell me actually how you went about, especially because you sell the seasonings now, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how does one go about actually starting to sell the seasonings and advertise it? How does that process work for you?
Okay, so when I started that group, I hadn't started selling the seasoning. I was still
Okay.
telling them that you can
So
actually do
cooking
this
class.
thing, you know. So what happened was at that time I wasn't really thinking about even selling it. I just wanted people to. I'm a very passionate person. I
Mhm.
go into things very deeply. Whatever I do, I will do it till. So people know that I don't have a middle course when it comes to what I love. I just go
Understood.
all into everything. So I was more like, you have to understand that this thing can work. And so while I was doing that, people would ask me, okay, so even if we want to buy those things, how do we get it? So I
Mhm.
go to Asian stores to get my spices and herbs. And then when I have the meetup kitchen, along the line, I started selling them in whole spices and herbs without mixing them. And
Mhm.
then I'll teach them how to mix.
Mhm.
So I started creating classes. I started by creating cooking classes where you would pay for it. It was like $1, $2 kind
Mhm.
of class then. It was very cheap. I think it started with like $2 kind of. And then in that class, I would tell them why they shouldn't use the seasoning cube, the benefit of the spices and herbs. And then I would teach them, I make a whole lot of drama over it. I'll teach them different Nigerian and even intercontinental dishes.
Mhm.
I make it very fun. I would give we'll do competitions. Okay, we'll group yourself. I give you 1 week to cook this. The person who does that will get this. And so yeah, sometimes I'll say, okay, when we have if your group wins, you get to come to my kitchen class for free. Things like that. So
Yeah.
that was, in fact, it was those classes that started um, giving me the money to do more.
Okay.
I
Okay.
remember that I had phone challenges, getting a good phone, and then power was very poor. So it was
Mhm.
those classes that I saved money to buy my generator, my first
Mhm.
generator. It was from
Mhm.
those classes. And then I used the money to buy better quality of phones to take good pictures. So from there, when I mixed, so like I said, I was selling the whole seeds and herbs. And then when I have my meetup kitchen, whatever we produce, the leftover, people were like, oh, please, I don't mind. I can pay for it. Let me buy it. Then after selling spices and herbs in whole forms for a while, one day I realized that people were not buying anymore. Like everything just
Mm.
went cold. And unfortunately, my best friend or my BFF, she stays in the UAE. And so she would help me buy the spices and herbs and send to Nigeria. And it was
Mhm.
selling at first. We're doing well. And then suddenly
It
it just
stopped.
went cold. People were
Ah.
not buying. And unfortunately, I just got a very large order. At that time, it was my large order. Now I laugh when I remember those days. What I thought was my large order was just something very small. And I had produced
Alhamdulillah.
lots of labels. I had gotten nylon to pack my spices, but people were not buying. Then I
Hmm.
realized that I started thinking, what is the problem? I realized that people were tired of producing the spices themselves.
Yeah.
I
They
looked
want
at
done
when I
for
have
you.
my meetup. Yes, when people come to my meetup kitchen, how they fight over the leftover. One
Mm.
day I just got scissors. I cut off all the nylons I had packed, and then started producing the spices. And then came out and said, "Okay, you don't have to roast your spices. You don't have to pound anything. We've got you covered." And then I started selling it. Now, unfortunately, due to my passion, when I do my classes, I started teaching people my flavors. I
Mm.
mean, what I was selling, I was teaching them. But before they come to class, I'll tell them, oh, this thing I want to teach you, you have to promise me that you're not going to use for business. It has
Mm.
to be just for your homes. And
Mm.
then if you don't agree, I'll refund your money. So people say, oh, no problem. We're not doing business with it. We just use it for our homes. But of course, that's not real.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
started selling my recipes. They produced my recipe and they started selling it. I was very
Subhanallah.
heartbroken. I was so sad. It was a very difficult time for me. So I just sat back. I'm like, okay, I created these flavors. I can recreate too. So I
Mm.
recreated them, tried it on. I call myself a scientist. I mean, I observe, notes, and then, check my results. So I just
Yeah.
made the spices again. I mean, the flavors again. I recreated them, and I would gift out a little bit of it to people, and so they'll be like, oh, what you taught us in class is different from this. This is way better, you
Mm.
know. So for those who were selling what I had, that was how I counteracted it and made better seasonings. The sadness of people stealing my recipe became what led me into producing better seasoning.
Better quality.
So yeah, better quality, easier to use, great
Mm.
taste, and that went on to where we are today.